Hey team, so we are diving now into our study of photosynthesis. And so the screencast today is going to be an explanation of the structure of the main organ of the plant that completes the process of photosynthesis for the plant, and that is obviously the leaf. So we are going to be discussing the structure of a leaf and all the different tissues that make up a leaf, in order to more completely understand photosynthesis and that process. Okay, so here we go. Okay, so I want you to imagine that I take this leaf and I cut it in half. And discard this little bit, you can throw that away in the trash, and then take this leaf and rotate it around like so. So spin it towards you and rotate it. And it's going to look something like so, where we're looking down the interior of the leaf here. So right here, you see this was, there's my pointer. The stem of my leaf is now over here, and I'm looking at it. I've cut it across right here, and I'm looking down the interior of the leaf. So we are going to be talking about this structure within the leaf right here. What does that look like? Okay, so let's scroll down even further and take a new sheet. So I want you to first draw, and you should be taking notes on this. You might have to pause and to get everything that's going to come out here. So first of all, we start off with a waxy layer. This is a thin layer of wax that's on the top. So if we're looking at our cell, this is going to be our leaf. This waxy layer is on the top of the leaf right here. And this is called the waxy cuticle. And then right below the waxy cuticle is a thin layer of cells that are kind of box-shaped, like so. And this is the layer of cells that produces the waxy cuticle. It's called the upper epidermis. Okay, and right below that upper epidermis is another layer of cells, and this layer of cells is much thicker and kind of rectangular shaped. And these cells are quite large, and they have inside of them a large central vacuole. And this helps them keep their shape, and it's actually also a storage facility for sugars produced in the process of photosynthesis. And they have all these sugars because they are actually the main producers of photosynthesis. So in addition to these large central vacuoles, they are dotted with many chloroplasts. These are the organelles that in which photosynthesis is taking place. And you'll notice that I'm doing these little dots all around the central vacuoles, but not within, because the chloroplasts are outside of the ammuloplast, or the central vacuole here. Okay, and these types of cells, I don't know if I said this before, these are called, this layer is the palisade mesophyll, and this is the main site of photosynthesis in the leaf. And then here I'm just going to go in and circle one of these and label it so you know this is a chloroplast. And this right here is a central vacuole. Central vacuole. Okay, so great. We've got our waxy cuticle, our upper epidermis, which produces our waxy cuticle, and the palisade mesophyll, which is the main site of photosynthesis within the leaf. Okay, and now I'm going to take a second and jump down to the bottom of the leaf right here, in which you can see there is another waxy cuticle. Again, I don't think I mentioned this before, but the waxy cuticle, the reason for it is it's protective of the cell, and it also prevents the cell from becoming dehydrated, from losing water. So on top of the cell, you'll notice that the waxy cuticle is one long line, but on the bottom, I've drawn it one long line, but I'm going to erase a little portion of it. There are breaks in the waxy cuticle, and this allows for the diffusion of gas in and out of the plant. We'll be discussing a little bit later what those gases are and why they're important, but the things are entering and exiting the cell through this break in the waxy cuticle on the bottom. Okay, so, and then right on top of our waxy cuticle layer, we have another epidermal layer. That top was called the upper epidermis, and this is called the lower epidermis. And again, the lower epidermis is secreting the waxy cuticle. And then in addition to this lower epidermis, we also have the presence of some specialized cells that surround this break in the waxy cuticle. And there are two of them, one on either side, and they can grow and close the gap between them, preventing things from entering and exiting the cell. And they can also open, or they can shrink and open and allow things to enter and exit the cell. And these cells are called guard cells. It makes sense because they're guarding the entry point to the leaf. And this entire structure of all the guard cells is called the stomate, plural stomata. So if you have multiple stomates, you'd call them stomata. Okay, and what are guard cells guarding? Well, we know that in photosynthesis, CO2 is necessary. So we have carbon dioxide coming into the cell. It is an input of photosynthesis. CO, write that a little better too. Okay, and then coming out of the cell, we have molecular oxygen. So coming out, we have O2, as well as I don't want to do O2. I want to do O2 in green. Okay, we have O2 coming out of the cell, and I didn't want to do it in blue because I wanted to do H2O in blue, also diffusing out of the cell. So it's really important to know here that these things that are leaving or entering the cell, this CO2, this O2, and this H2O, are all leaving in the form of a gas, or entering in the form of a gas. So it's only gas that's coming in and out of the leaf through the stomata. Okay, so now I'm going to get back to where this oxygen, water, and O2 are coming from in a little bit, but let's pause here and talk about another leaf structure that's also important. So, I want you to imagine here's a big, that's a bad circle. Okay, slightly better circle. Draw a circle, and then interior to that circle, draw, interior to that circle, draw another circle. Now, this is the vein system of the leaf. And imagine we're looking at this head-on. So if you remember, this is going to be embedded within our leaf right here. We've got all our different layers in here, and this is part of the vascular system of the plant. It's helping transport things up from the roots and then from the leaves to the roots or the other tissues in the cell. And this vascular system, you can think of this as like a big tube, and in our leaf diagram right here, we see that all these little veins embedded throughout the leaf that's what this is representing. So imagine if you were to take this vein right here and look at it, if you crosswise, it would be a large tube-like structure. So that's what this represents here. Okay, and the cells that make up this tube structure, they're kind of narrow and long. They are called bundle sheath cells. I'm going to write that down. Okay, and these bundle sheath cells are bundling two other types of cells. I'm going to pick out colors for them. Let's say blue, and yellow. So imagine these again are long tubey cells. Okay, so these bundle sheath cells are bundling these two types of cells, and the top layer of cells is called the xylem. X-Y-L-E-M. And the xylem is responsible for transport of water from the soil, so from the roots, so it's water in the soil is absorbed by the roots and then transported through capillary action up to the leaves, and that all happens through the xylem. And then the bottom, the yellow cells that I've drawn here, are called phloem. P-H-L-O-E-M. And the phloem is responsible for the transport of sugar water, that is the sugar that is produced in the leaf, to the rest of the plant. And as you know, that sugar is going to be broken down by the plant to form useful cellular energy for the cell to do work. And it's also that sugar is going to be incorporated into the plant for growing the plant, actually making it bigger. Okay, so we've got those two things. So water from the xylem is going to diffuse out of the xylem, where it's at a high concentration, to other parts of the plant. It's actually going to enter, it's going to enter into the cells and do photosynthesis. And it's also, when the stoma is open, it's going to move out through the stomates if those are open, just because it's high concentration within the leaf and lower concentration out of the leaf. And then sugar that is produced in the leaf is going to diffuse down into the phloem. So you can imagine that sugars produced in these cells are going to move from an area of a high concentration to low concentration down into the phloem. Additionally, molecular oxygen, O2, is going to be produced in photosynthesis. It's going to move from the cells, from an area of high concentration to an area of lower concentration out of the cells. And CO2, which is higher outside the cell than inside the cell, is going to diffuse in through the stomates, or the stomate, the stomata, if the guard cells are open. Okay, so we've got this vascular system that's responsible for transporting things around, and then the last structure within this empty space, I'm going to draw it over here, even though there's just not enough space to draw it inside, but you can imagine all these cells kind of squished in next to the bundle, the vascular bundle. Oh, which I don't know if I mentioned that, but this entire thing, these bundle sheath cells and the xylem and phloem, all compose a structure called the vascular bundle. Okay, but back to these these cuboidal kind of cells. These cells are called the spongy mesophyll cells, and there are lots of spaces in between them that allows for the movement of oxygen and water and sugar water and CO2 diffuse around in the cell. And they also have large central vacuoles and they also have chloroplasts in them, although not as many as the palisade mesophyll. Okay, so this is called the spongy mesophyll. Okay, so that is it for the structure of a leaf. Hopefully this will help give you context and help you see where in the plant photosynthesis is occurring and how all these different products and reactants in the process of photosynthesis are kind of coming into play, how they're physically getting into the spaces in which they need to be for the process to occur. So that's it, and I will see you tomorrow in class.